Have you ever found yourself bending, twisting, reshaping who you are just to keep someone close? Just to feel chosen? And yet, the more you give, the more you dissolve, until one day you look in the mirror and wonder, where did I go? Carl Jung once warned, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And here's why that's true. Because the moment you do, you can no longer be controlled. You can no longer be molded into what someone else wants you to be. But so many women live the opposite way, not from self-acceptance, but from a quiet, desperate fear. If I don't give, if I don't adjust, if I don't make myself smaller, will I still be loved? And here's the painful truth. He will never respect you if you abandon yourself for him. It's not about him, not really. It's about the silent contract you've signed with your own worth. The belief that love is something you must earn by disappearing. That respect is granted only when you're convenient, agreeable, endlessly forgiving. But Jung saw this pattern clearly. Where love rules, there is no will to power. And where power predominates, their love is lacking. So ask yourself what is really being asked of you in these moments. Not love, not devotion. Compliance. And the moment you realize that, something shifts, because the woman who knows her worth doesn't beg for scraps of affection. She doesn't negotiate her boundaries. She doesn't shrink herself to fit into someone else's vision of what a woman should be. And that is what unsettles people. A woman who is whole, who refuses to fracture herself, is a mirror. And most people cannot bear to see their own reflection in her stillness. You've felt it before, haven't you? That quiet tension. When you say no, when you refuse to chase, to plead, to perform. The way some men recoil not in anger, but in confusion. Because they expected you to bend. They expected you to need them more than you need yourself. But what if loneliness isn't? Failure? What if it's the price of integrity? Seneca wrote, sometimes even to live is an act of courage, and isn't that the truth? To live as yourself, to choose yourself, even when the world whispers that you're too much, too difficult, too unwilling to play the game. This is where the transformation begins. Not in demanding respect from others, but in embodying it. In recognizing that the love you crave cannot exist where your own reflection is erased. So, let me ask you this. How many versions of yourself have you buried just to keep someone near? And what would happen if you stopped? There's a moment subtle, almost imperceptible, when a woman realizes she's been bargaining for love that was never truly on the table. And in that moment, she faces a choice. Keep negotiating, keep diminishing, keep hoping, or walk away. Most women fear the walking away. Not because they're weak, but because they've been taught that emptiness is worse than betrayal, that silence is more terrifying than disrespect. But Carl Jung saw through this illusion. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. And what is darkness, if not the unspoken truth we're afraid to face? Here's the truth. Respect isn't given to those who plead for it. It's given to those who refuse to live without it. Think of the women who command reverence without demanding it, the ones who don't chase, don't explain, don't linger where they're undervalued. They're not cold. They're not cruel. They're simply whole. And that wholeness is a language most people don't know how to speak, because it doesn't beg. It doesn't bargain. It is. You've seen this before, the way a man's eyes change when he realizes he can't manipulate a woman's emotions. The way his voice softens when he understands she won't fracture herself for his approval. It's not fear that shifts him. It's recognition. The sudden awareness that she has something he can't take, can't shape, can't own. Jung called this the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming undivided. And it's the most subversive thing a woman can do in a world that profits from her self-doubt. Because a woman who knows herself cannot be controlled. A woman who trusts herself cannot be gaslit. A woman who values herself will not stay where she is disrespected. But here's what no one tells you. The moment you stop accepting crumbs, the world will try to convince you you're starving. They'll call you difficult. They'll say you're asking for too much. They'll tell you love is supposed to hurt, to drain, to demand everything from you. But since when has love been the thing that makes you disappear? The ancient Stoics knew this well. Epictetus wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself, and isn't at the heart of it." A woman who masters her own worth cannot be bought with half-hearted affection. She cannot be soothed by empty promises. She knows the difference between love and performance, and she chooses love, even if it means choosing solitude. So let me ask you, what would happen if you stopped negotiating for the bare minimum? What would shift if you stopped fearing the silence? Because the irony is this: the less you tolerate, the more you're offered. The less you chase, the more you're sought. Not because the world suddenly becomes kinder, but because you've stopped accepting anything less. There comes a point when the pain of staying the same finally outweighs the fear of change. And that is when the real transformation begins. You've felt it, haven't you? That quiet unraveling when you realize, I have been loving in a language that was never meant for me. Pleading, performing, proving, as if love were something you could earn through sheer endurance. But Carl Jung saw the danger in this. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. And what are you choosing right now in the silence of your own heart? Here's the truth they don't tell you. Respect isn't lost when you walk away. It's lost when you stay without reason. Think of the women who leave rooms they're tolerated in, hands they're barely held by, love that only arrives in fragments. They're not running from commitment. They're running toward themselves. And that act alone, the refusal to mistake longing for love, changes everything, because love should feel like sunlight, not interrogation. It should expand you, not exhaust you. But so many women confuse being needed with being valued, and there's a world of difference between the two. One keeps you small. The other demands you rise. Jung called this the shadow work, the unspoken, unglamorous labor of facing what we've been taught to ignore. That maybe the love you're clinging to isn't love at all. That maybe the respect you crave won't come from him, but from you. And here's where the alchemy happens. The moment you stop begging for a seat at his table, you realize you're never meant to sit there. You were meant to build your own. The ancient philosophers knew this. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free, and isn't that the ultimate freedom? To stop mistaking attachment for devotion. To stop confusing history for destiny." So let me ask you this. What would happen if you stopped fearing the empty space he leaves behind? What if that space isn't a void, but an altar? A place where you finally meet yourself, not as a supplicant, but as the one you've been waiting for all along. Because here's the secret no one tells you: the women who are truly loved deeply, fiercely, unconditionally, are not the ones who sacrifice themselves. They're the ones who refuse to. And if that truth resonates with you, if it stirs something in you that knows it's time to rise, then share this with someone who needs to remember her own power. The world will try to make her forget, but you'll remind her